Going to the beach can be a wonderful vacation plan or a nice afternoon for those who live near the open waters. Though, over the years, beachgoers have found some extremely strange stuff that washed up from the ocean. Today, we will be looking at 10 of the strangest things found washed up on beaches. But before we get started, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Otherwise, a massive dung beetle will crawl in your mouth while you sleep. Number 10. Most of us played with Legos at some point in our childhood. Therefore, we are all far too familiar with the debilitating pain that can stem from stepping on one of the tiny bricks. Back in 1997, a massive shipment of Legos was being transported across the ocean when tragedy struck, and 4.8 million Lego pieces were lost at sea. Ever since, small Lego bricks have been finding their way onto the shores of the UK, getting buried in the sand or making their way just below the surface of the sand. A perfect trap for young children who are running around barefoot. What's even worse is that most of these bricks aren't standard sizes or shapes. The shipment mostly contained irregular shapes, meaning that they are far more painful to step on. Some experts have suggested that the bricks could have floated around 62,000 miles away by now and could be drifting onto other continents very soon. Some of these bricks have already made it as far as Ireland. Number 9. This post may be a bit grim for some viewers, but it's incredibly strange, so we had to mention it. It's not uncommon to find interesting items that have washed up on the beach. Sometimes people have found cell phones, money, or rare historic artifacts that have made their way to the shore after being missing for many years. But have you ever considered the possibility of body parts washing ashore? Probably not, but that is exactly what happened to a fisherman from Siberia. He was out casting his rod one day when he noticed the remnants of a human hand sticking out of the snow. He investigated the hand and found a total of 54 severed hands that had washed ashore at a popular fishing spot. He almost immediately called the police, who began an investigation. The man was anticipating that someone would be arrested or there would be a manhunt for a maniac, but what unfolded was truly remarkable. Police told the man not to worry about the hands and that they had no reason to believe that they were the work of a vicious criminal. Instead, they traced the hands back to a nearby forensics lab. According to authorities, they believe the hands had likely been removed during testing for identification purposes. From here, they were somehow mislabeled and either tossed out with the trash or mistakenly made their way into the ocean. The police promised to get to the bottom of the issue so that this never happens again. Number 8. Margaret Wells was robbed way back in 2011. She had many personal items stolen, but her most prized possession was a life-sized E.T. replica that was made by her daughter. Her daughter had been taking part in a stage makeup course, and E.T. was one of their project dolls. The doll went missing for several months and police had no leads on who may have stolen it. A beachgoer was at a nearby swimming area when he noticed something in the distance. He believed it was a body and called the police. Police arrived at the scene and went out to investigate the victim. Though, as it would turn out, there was no victim. Instead, floating in the ocean was a life-sized E.T. replica. Margaret heard about the discovery and contacted authorities to claim the statue. She says that this was the only realistic E.T. replica in all of England, so she knew it was hers. She always knew E.T. would come home.
I'll be right here.
Number 7. A man named Akio Yokoyama lost his home and 3 of his closest family members in 2011 to a terrible tsunami. In addition to this, he also lost several of his prized possessions to the storm, including a large van that he had been using as a storage unit. Inside the van was his motorcycle, a Harley Davidson that he dearly loved. He believed that the motorcycle had been lost forever and had no plans of ever finding it. Though the van turned up on a beach in British Columbia over a year later. The motorcycle was still inside, and a Harley Davidson representative offered to repair the bike to its former glory and return it to the man. Number 6. The St. Augustine Monster was the name given to a large mass of animal remains that appeared on an island in Florida back in 1896. The carcass was discovered by 2 young boys who reported it to authorities. They believed the mass was most likely a whale, but scientists weren't as easily convinced. Some even suggested it may be a sea monster. Other scientists believed it was most likely a giant octopus.
Hello, Beastie.
Researchers went back and forth about the discovery for over 100 years until it was finally proven in 2004 that the giant animal was, in fact, a whale, just as the boys had thought. Number 5. Back in 2012, a Florida man stumbled upon the finding of a lifetime. He was walking along a local beach when he noticed a large eyeball the size of a softball. Many began to speculate that this finding must have been the eyeball of a giant sea monster, but the man kept his wits about himself and turned the eye into local wildlife experts. While researchers weren't too sure what the eye was at first, they eventually determined that it belonged to a large swordfish. The mystery had finally been solved, and the man could rest easy knowing that he hadn't just discovered one of the most terrifying creatures we can imagine.
Who is it? Who is it?
Number 4. Back in 1992, a large shipping container of rubber ducks lost its cargo at sea, sending rubber ducks floating all across the world. Thousands of these ducks were lost in the open waters, making their way to Alaska, Hawaii, South America, Australia, and even Arctic areas of the world. These ducks became so popular that they inspired a book titled Moby Duck. Most of the ducks have now been located and accounted for, but researchers estimate that there could still be at least 200 ducks floating around, waiting to be washed ashore. These ducks have become one of the most famous shipwrecks of all time, but they also pose serious health concerns for sea creatures. If an animal were to eat one of these ducks by mistake, it could cause major health issues for the animal. In addition to this, the ocean is not the proper environment for an item like this to decay. The ducks have added huge concerns to the scientific community regarding the cleanliness of our open waters. Number 3. Back in 2011, people who had been attending a beach in Miami got the scare of a lifetime when a swimmer stumbled across a large 5-foot-long mine that had washed ashore. Police were notified immediately and the beach was forced to be evacuated. The bomb was heavily investigated and the Navy became involved. Though not soon after, the Navy informed local authorities that the mine was completely safe. It had been used during training missions for recruits and was not active or potentially harmful. The mine was taken away by the Navy and the beach soon returned to normal.
Yeah! 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 All right! Yeah!
Number 2. Even though the previously mentioned landmine may have been inactive, the 100 bombs that washed ashore in Hampshire were not. These bombs were discovered in 2011 and were dated back to World War II. These bombs were known to have been hiding in the open waters, but no one had any idea that 100 of them were capable of washing ashore all at once. Many locals speculated that a recent supermoon had caused the bombs to come ashore. This is because the moon had caused the tides to recede, and when the waters soon rushed back to shore later on in the evening, the bombs may have been pulled along with the tide. Others have speculated that these bombs could have been brought to land by fishing nets, but this seems unlikely as none of them had exploded or been damaged or activated in any way. The British Navy was called to investigate and the beach was evacuated. A controlled team then detonated the bombs while they were in the water. Number 1. Hurricane Sandy tore through the east coast of the United States in 2012, leaving devastation across several major states. Kathleen Mullen was affected by the disaster and headed out to the beach one day to relax since the power to her home had been completely shut off by the storm. While at the beach, they found a stack of 57 letters that had been bound together with a pink ribbon. The letters had made their way to the shore during the intense storm and were now chilling on the beach, waiting to be discovered. Kathleen had no idea what the letters were, but she was very curious. She took them home and dried them out by the fire. It took quite a long time, but she eventually made her way through all of them. As it would turn out, the letters had been written more than 50 years earlier, between 1942 and 1947. They turned out to be letters between two young lovebirds that were written while the husband was away at war. Dorothy Fallon and Lynn Harnham had written countless letters to one another over the 5 years that the husband was in service. Kathleen was determined to track down the couple and return the letters to them. However, she soon learned that the husband had passed away many years prior. She continued her research online and eventually found the daughter of the couple, named Shelley. Shelley informed Kathleen that her mother was now 91 years old and had been placed in a nursing home for quite some time. Kathleen made her way to the New Jersey home and returned the letters to the daughter and her mother. This is a truly once-in-a-lifetime discovery. There wasn't any info about whether or not Dorothy was in a good enough mindset to remember the letters, but at least they were returned after all this time.